of Halloween, we will discuss the short story, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, first published in 1843. It is told by an unnamed narrator who tries to convince us of his sanity, while also describing a murder he committed. His motive was neither passion nor desire, but fear of the man's pale blue eyes. Obsessed with the old man's eyes, he smothers him and dismembers him and hides his body under the floorboards. When the police arrive to investigate the old man's shrieks, the narrator tries to stay calm, but hears what he believes is the old man's beating heart. Panicking, thinking that he has been caught, the narrator rips up the floorboards and confesses to the crime.
Do you believe that you were mentally sane?
Yes, it's true that I have been ill for a very long time, but I have not lost control of my mind. My mind is intact. Why would you think that my mind is not intact?
Why did you do it?
It's impossible to say why I did what I did. I didn't want his money. I didn't hate him. I actually loved the old man. But if I'd have to give a reason, it was his eye, his vulture eye. The one, that eye of the bird, that disgusting bird that watches a creature, an animal, and just swoops down after it's already dead.
Did you love or hate the old man? There's some confusion in that area.
I didn't hate the old man. I hated his eye.
Did you have any interaction with the old man prior to the murder?
For 8 nights, I crept into his room to watch him. But his eye was shut. There was no reason. I couldn't do the deed when his eye was shut.
Why did you admit to your crimes?
Because the police officers were mocking me. I committed a crime so perfect and I knew I had got away with it. But they couldn't hear it.
Couldn't hear what?
The sound. The beating. It's under the floorboards!
Do you believe that you were mentally sane?
Listen, and I will tell you how healthy my mind is.
In this short story, we will analyze the themes of love and hate, the inner conflict of self versus alter ego, and the power of guilt.
In this short story, Edgar Allan Poe explores two of the most intense emotions a human can feel. These are love and hate. Now, obviously, these fall on two way different sides of a spectrum for different people. Even though most people see them as opposites, does everybody see them that way? The definition of love can be defined as an intense feeling of affection, while hate is defined as an intense dislike for someone or something. Now, to most, these are two way different feelings. But in their definitions, they both have the same word, intense. These two emotions are universal emotions. The reason they're called that is because each person knows what they mean and has either felt them or will feel them in their lifetime. In this short story, we realize that these two emotions, that are totally different to some people, have blended together in our narrator's head, making it hard for him to hold on to his sanity. We first see this in the story when the narrator is talking about how he loves the old man, but he hates his eye. The narrator begins to explain that he actually loves the old man and he never hated him. But this perplexes the readers when it comes to this, because if he loved the old man, why did he kill him? The old man himself doesn't trigger the narrator's hatred. The eye of the old man is what triggers his hatred. So in this short story, one line that sticks out is when the narrator says, "During all of that week, I was as friendly to the old man as I could be, and warm and loving." This line contradicts both of the emotions that he is feeling. Why would he be warm, kind, and loving if he was planning to murder him? But then it also begs the question, if he loves him, why does he even have the thought of murdering him? In the story, the narrator describes why he did what he did. The line that he used was, "There was no reason for what I did. I did not hate the old man. I even loved him. And he never hurt me. I did not want his money." Even in the reasoning, he struggled to fill in the gaps on if he loved or hated the old man. By not filling in these gaps, it shows that he is starting to lose his sanity on what reality is and how he feels about each emotion. Some believe that the narrator loved himself, but he was also very acutely aware of his insanity. These people also say that the narrator projected his insanity onto the old man, and by murdering him was the only way that he could get rid of it and void himself of his own insanity.
Now I will discuss the power of guilt. The narrator murders the old man, disposes of his body, and suavely invites the cops in to investigate the crime scene. The narrator seemingly thinks that he has the whole situation under control until he suddenly thinks that he hears the old man's heartbeat beating under the floorboards. The beating heart of the old man that the killer hears represents the killer's guilt. It slowly gets louder and louder until he feels like he has to admit that he committed the murder. Essentially, the guilt of the killer is so strong that the heartbeat of the old man begins to beat again, which shows the power of guilt. I think that the Telltale Heart was influenced by society. In 1840, when this story was written, America was expanding westward. Expanding west involved the murder of many Indians, as well as the death of many Americans who died in the process of expanding west. If someone was murdered in the 1840s, they did not have the technology that they have today that can help solve murders. They did not have fingerprint analyzers, blood splatter analysts, or set rules about keeping a crime scene untampered. Like the narrator in the story, if someone does a good job of disposing of the body, people can get away with murder. The only thing that could expose an effective killer would be the guilt that the killer feels in their own heart. If the guilt becomes too strong, they will admit their crime, just like in Telltale Heart.
What is an alter ego? The alter ego is another side of oneself, in a way, a second self. In many of Poe's Gothic tales, characters wage internal conflicts within themselves by creating an imaginary alter ego or alternate personality. The majority of Poe's characters are nervous, oversensitive, and given to excessive worrying or strange fixations. And Poe explored the consequences of such obsession in The Telltale Heart, where the protagonist's declaration of oversensitivity merely is a thin disguise for his insanity. The Telltale Heart foregrounds different stages of the ego as the narrator defines himself through the narcissistic eye, the malicious glare, and the mysterious gaze of the eye. We see the arrogant self-empowerment at the opening of the story when featuring the egotistical positioning of the self and the ego. The narrator sees himself as this sort of master with good powers of observation who can determine all values, boldly proclaiming he hears all things in heaven and earth and that he hears things in hell. He implies he doesn't need anyone to form his ideas or opinions and that they're simply wrong when he states, "Why will you say that I am mad?" It's rightly observed that Poe's character thrives in the singular idea that there is no other God but the self as God. He believes and perceives himself as sane when he declares that his disease is good, that it sharpens his senses, not dulling or destroying them, leaving the author in a mindset of being the absolute master with an eye for the ultimate truth when he says he is able to calmly tell the whole story. Like in Poe's works, you can see the alter ego in today's world, especially in the spotlight of Hollywood stars. For example, Heath Ledger. The greatest role, which came at the greatest personal cost for the actor, was that of the infamous villain, the Joker. Plunging deep into the mind and becoming the embodiment and of the fictional character. Those who refer to this tragedy suggest that it was the Joker that killed Ledger. While they didn't mean this in a literal sense, that the Joker came to life to act out the deed, they didn't mean it necessarily in a figurative sense either. People seem to suggest that Ledger was haunted by this alter ego, or second self, that Ledger was unable to get the Joker out of his system after playing the role. It may not be so frivolous to ask whether the Joker might have in some strange way been responsible for Ledger's death. And like in The Telltale Heart, what would this have to say about psychic powers of fictional ideas and our characters?
So, in conclusion, in The Telltale Heart, we go over a theme of love and versus hate. The narrator loved the old man, however he hated his eye and compared it to that of a vulture's eye. And going on to the next theme of versus the alter ego, he let it get to him that he would admit that he was mad and continued to creep upon the old man night after night until he finally killed him, leading into it the last theme of guilt, where he finally admitted to the police officers that he killed him and hit him in the foot.